the Raspberry Commission, the Commission on Pesticide Registration, and several registrants. There's a lot of people who were involved in this work. I got my name and Tom Walters, but there's a lot of other people in the raspberry industry that were involved with this. So I'm going to jump into this. However, before I talk about my talk, there's another important talk on gray mold resistance in raspberry on Thursday. It would be, in an ideal world, it should have been before mine. It's 1:05 tomorrow in this location. WSU's Dr. Tobin Peaver is going to talk about his research on fungicide resistance, small fruit in Pacific Northwest. But you'll see the epicenter of this is going to be on raspberries in Whatcom County. It's going to be a very, very significant talk. And when you hear this talk, it'll make you appreciate my talk. He is going to tell you how bad this situation is. Dolphy, who's down here in the front row, when you gave a presentation on that. That's part of Tobin's research group. Gave a presentation in Linden on this, and all I could think is we're screwed on this. So I make a big pitch for Tobin's talk tomorrow. Botrytis is very well known around the world for developing resistance. There's something about the genetics of this disease that allows it to mutate and develop resistance. It developed resistance to Roverall many years ago. Steve Midbow, where are you? Are you in here? Where you got? Hey, when did Roverall develop resistance? What's that? 1995. Okay, mid-90s it developed resistance, and so they stopped using it. They switched to some products called Pristine, which is a package mix of boscalid and pyraclostrobin, and to Switch, which is a package mix of cyprodinil and fludioxonil, and Elevate, which is phenhexamide, and they've always been using some Captan. One of the short suits of Captan, it has some MRL issues. The U.S. tolerance is 25 parts per million, but Canada, which is the #1 export market for Washington raspberries, has a MRL of 5 parts per million. So if you're using Captan and you want to go to Canada, you got to be careful about using too much Captan or Captan late in the season. These products in general gave very good control, gave exceptional control. And so we did what we always do. We poured it on. We used a lot of it, and we got very, very good control. And so everybody was using Pristine, Switch, Elevate, and some Captan. In 2012, they had some control failures. They started some resistance monitoring. This is what Tobin Peaver is going to give a talk on. And they found in raspberries in Whatcom County, it was in every field that they tested, or every field where these fungicides actually had been used. And one of the products, Elevate, every single sample they took from every single field was resistant. We lost Elevate. Elevate no longer is a product that can be used in Whatcom County raspberries if you have used it or have a history of its use. And they found it to a lower degree in Switch and with Pristine. And later, they documented this from other raspberry growing locations in Washington, and they found it in Oregon. And this year, they've got data showing it in blueberries, strawberry, and blackberries. In some fields, Elevate, in some raspberry fields, Elevate is essentially useless. In some fields, in this case, it's blueberries, in some blueberry fields with a history of heavy Pristine use, because they'll use Pristine for mummyberry and for Botrytis. Pristine is essentially useless in some blueberry fields. And if there's been heavy use of any of those three products, Switch, Pristine, or Elevate, Botrytis has developed resistance against this. But what I just gave you was the very condensed version of what Tobin is going to talk about with some really strong and powerful data. But I had to tell you about this so you understand why I'm going to talk about what's next. So we're losing or have lost some of our key Botrytis fungicides. and we've got to come up with some new products. We also had to develop some strategies to try and keep the products that we currently have. All three of these products still have a fit in some fields for some berry crops. And so we want to try and keep them where resistance hasn't developed. For example, we don't have much of a history of elevate use in blueberries. And so we don't have resistance in elevate in blueberries very commonly. So we wouldn't want to use elevate in Whatcom County raspberries, but Whatcom County blueberries probably has a role. So the Washington Red Raspberry Commission and its allies are funding field work to find new fungicides for raspberries. And to my knowledge, and I'm going to just ask Henry, you guys, before we started this raspberry research project, there hadn't been any raspberry fungicide work done since Pete Bristow in the 90s. Right. Okay. And so this is something that was long overdue. And so this is our third year of this work, and we did a very large field. We did 2 field trials in raspberries, but I'm going to talk about one of them, a very large field trial over near Everson on Meekers on Rob Dollywall's field, and he has been an excellent cooperator. We had 30 different treatments. We had like 29 different products in there. We made 6 applications. We were concerned about low disease pressure, so we added some. Oh, this is I got this slide right before I walked up here, and it's not a very good slide. But what we have here, you can't see this very well, but this is the 5-year average temperature in May and June in Whatcom County for the previous 5 years. This is the average temperature in Whatcom County in 2015. Record high temperatures. Also, there you go. That's a little better one here. This is 2010 through 2014. This is 2015. So you had record high temperatures. Also, virtually no rainfall during June. So we had record low rainfall. We could not have come up with a worse year to have done this very huge research trial. We had the biggest fungicide trial that's probably ever been done in the state of Washington on raspberry botrytis in the same year that we had virtually no disease pressure. So it was the worst timing, but you don't know when you're starting a trial, and you can't not do it because you're worried about you might have low pressure. But what we did was we put this overhead misting system in to put some extra leaf wetness on there and try and blow up a disease. Sometimes when I come to your field, you don't want me around because I do the exact opposite of what you'd want to do, but we actually tried to blow up botrytis in this field. This is Dr. Peaver and Dr. Tom Walters. This is us. When we're out there, we go out and we sample. So we have a total of 42 different treatments replicated 4 times. We have 168 treatments, and we look at 100 berries each treatment. So every time we go out and sample, we're looking at 16,000 plus berries every time we go out. And so there's a lot of looking through hand lenses at berries. This is actually, you can't tell, but this is, and I've got some botrytis on it. This is making the application. We use an over-the-road sprayer. We use these water-sensitive cards here. These cards are actually yellow, but if water hits them, they turn blue to make sure we're getting adequate coverage. And it's a very small print because there's so many treatments. But these we had untreated check. We had PhD, Omega, Maravon. A number of these you'll never heard of because they're not registered. Maravon, Luna, Tranquility, Scala, Switch, Captain, Elevate, Pristine, Iprodine, which is Rovrol, Protexio, Proline, Oso, Topsum M, a product you never ever would have heard of, Neo Boost, Elevate plus Neo Boost, Luna Tranquility plus Serenade, Kinja with a surfactant. These are high rates, Kinja at a low rate, Kinja at a low rate with a surfactant. Some experimental products, Serenade by itself, and some more experimental products. So we had 30 different treatments in here, Here are the rates, and A, B, C, D, E, F is the number of applications. So all these we applied 6 times on a 10 to 14 days, about a 10-day interval. Now, this is going to pain you all, but this is the a key slide is right here. So these are the same 30 treatments ranked by the worst treatment to the best treatment. Now, I just want to say, doing nothing, untreated, we had 19% of berries with botrytis at one point. I just have to point out, Elevate had more botrytis than the untreated. This is a field that has Elevate resistance. It has a heavy Elevate resistance, and using Elevate in this particular field is the same as doing nothing, except it costs more, so it's worse than doing nothing. And as you go down, you have more effective products. I want to point out that as I go, here's Pristine. Pristine is, in this field where we have resistance, is not a lot better than doing nothing. Switch is down there. Switch is moderately effective in this field. But what I want to point out, here's Captan. Captan is not a great botrytis product, except when everything else has resistance. In this case, Captan was more effective than Elevate, Pristine, and Switch because it has not developed resistance to botrytis, or botrytis hasn't developed resistance to Captan. So what I want to point out here is if you look at what the best product, there's a Kinja. I want to point out Kinja and Kinja. These are all products that you would not heard of, Kinja. While I got it, we're going to have a guy raise his hand. Chris Gee, raise your hand right over here. All right, stand up. Hey, okay, so Chris, you are, what's your title?
Field development representative from ISK Biosciences.
And you live in?
Kansas City.
And you came out just to this meeting just to have me recognize this guy. This is a guy that is going to bring Kinja to us, and I will talk about that a little bit later. But if you're really interested in this product, that's the guy that we're going to want to talk to. He's one of the people that helped supported this study. Now, I want to point out that there's a product here, Omega. That's a Syngenta product, not registered, but that's a product that maybe we might be trying to get interested in getting registered. This is Maravon. Maravon, I think, if I remember right, just got registered on blueberries. I believe may be coming on raspberries. The catch to that product is it has the same mode of action as, help me out here, Chris, is it cyprodinil or boscalid? Same as boscalid, Maravon? Or Joe? It's one of those two. And that's one that that looks good, but we're concerned may quickly develop cross-resistance. There's Topsum M, which is another interesting product that we might be interested in. But the thing is, Kinja was one of the best products we had, and it is in the process of being registered on raspberries. Now, I will tell you, disease pressure was low in this case. The only reason we had any pressure is because we had those overhead sprinklers, and we like to do this in a heavy pressure situation. I know you guys would be happy if we never tested this in a low pressure situation, but I have my fingers crossed that we're going to have terrible botrytis in 2016. How do you feel about that, Randy? Yeah. Okay. Another thing I want to point out is we did a botrytis trial on Blackberry. And one of the things about blackberries is it goes later in the season for harvesting. It goes into September. In September, it was cooled off, and we had some rain event. So we did this trial near Mount Vernon. I got to look at this. And I'm glad that we did this. Just so you know, this is a Kinja treated, this is what Kinja treated blackberries looked like. This is what the untreated Czech looked like. This is a field that had resistance, documented resistance to Pristine and Switch in this field. This is the Kinja treated blackberries. This is the untreated Czech. But what we had here, I want to point out the untreated Czech, 16% of the untreated Czech in September had botrytis. The Kinja had some, but if you look down at Pristine and Endura, which is pretty much the same as Pristine, it had the same amount or not statistically different from the untreated Czech. So this is a field that they have lost Pristine due to resistance. Switch is not significant. It's better, but it's not significantly different than untreated check. But the Kinja significantly reduced it. Although eventually it ended up the Botrytis ended up late in the season, just pretty much taking everything. So we're pursuing a Section 18 for Kinja. So this is going to be a new product for us. Arguably, Kinja is the Switch or Pristine or Elevate of the future in terms of that's a product that we're going to make a jump to. Assuming we get the Section 18, and I'm reasonably sure we'll get this Section 18, which is emergency exemption. Now, Tobin Peever's his group generated some data that's absolutely essential for this. So I'm making a plug for, we got to keep funding Tobin's work because we cannot get to Section 18 without the work that he's doing. Based on the data that we have for raspberries and the data we have for blackberries, we are pursuing this Section 18 for raspberries, blackberries, and blueberries. We are not pursuing it for strawberries because we just got a label for Kinja on strawberries. And this Kinja is effective against, if you have resistance, Pristine, Switch, or Elevate resistant Botrytis, Kinja will be effective against those resistant fungi. Bad news, it's got an MRL for Canada, one for Japan is pending, but no other MRLs. So, Chris, I had all this happy talk with you. Now I want to pin your ears back. When are we going to get the Japan MRL? Speak in the microphone, please.
Good question. We are pursuing registration in Japan right now, and we're going through Codex for a global registration.
And when are you going to get, a year? Will you get it before the growing season?
Doubtful.
Okay, so we're going to have it for Canada. So it can go to Canada. Is it registered in Canada?
Yes.
It's registered in Canada, so you got it. Have you used it in Canada, or is it just registered in Canada?
That happened in January, so it's been in Canada for the growing.
Rena, do you know anything about it? Okay. So this product, and we have data in blackberry and raspberries, and in blackberries it was in a heavy pressure situation, and it's better than anything that we have that's labeled. The downside is MRLs. So what I'm supposed to talk about is how are we going to control? They didn't necessarily ask me to talk about research results, but I had to give the research results so you understand the next part. Now, there's a kind of a raspberry disease working group. Midbow's on it, Randy Honkoop's on it, Tobin Peever's on it, a lot of Kevin Berenson, and a number of folks are on this, and we're trying to put together control programs. Now, we haven't done it yet for 2016, but I'm going to show you what I believe are some of the proposals. Midbow and Berenson, when I get done here, I'm going to look over and you tell me where I'm wrong. So I'll give you an example of how to control Botrytis, fungicidal resistant Botrytis in raspberries. Here's an example. If you're an IQF grower for a long season program, start application at 5 to 10% bloom. Now this is without Kinja. You can use Captain plus Switch, Captain at 2 pounds, followed by Captain plus Pristine, followed by Captain plus PhD, Captain followed by Captain plus Switch, followed by Captain plus Roverall, followed by Captain plus Switch. That's a total of 12.5 pounds of Captain. You want to put Captain in for resistance management. So this is kind of like a gold standard. This is the kind of stuff that makes Whatcom Farmers Co-op some money here. But expensive program, but this is the best program that we have. I know they can't argue with me about this one because they're the ones that helped develop this program. But now that we have Kinja, you substitute in Kinja. This is IQF long season program. You do Kinja Captan, then Captan PhD, Captan Switch, Captan Overall, Captan Switch. And you might switch out one of these switches with a Pristine. And again, you're still at 12.5 pounds of Captan. Midbow, what do you think about switching out 2 Kinjas early on so you are less likely to have MRLs issues? What's that?
I think everybody would like to know what the MRLs are before you started that, but if you started with them early, you'd have less chance of having a higher.
All right. Hold that microphone. Hold on to that. We're going to do the next one. I mean, if you can't stand the risk of an MRL issue, that's the program that you can use. That's the non-Kinja program that we developed. That was our program #1 from last year. But if you substitute Kinja for the first 2 applications, that's what you get. If you, on this one, if you are less concerned about MRLs, like if you're going to go to Canada or if it's domestic product, it's the same as before, except you put Pristine between the 2 Kinja applications. One of the principles you want to do is you always want to be rotating. Other than Captan, you never want to have more than 2 modes of action. You never want to apply something more than twice in a row before you rotate. And so this is the same as the last time, except you stuck a Pristine in between the 2 Kinja applications. Again, you're still having a lot of Captan in there. If you want, this is a program that has got Kinja, PhD, Switch, Overall, and Switch. Still 6 applications, but you've left out some Captan in there at the end of the season. This is something if you're going to Canada. This is a program that should result in residues less than 5 parts per million. All right, I got 5 minutes left, and I saw something that scares me worse, and I only got 5 minutes, and that's Daryl wanting to ask a question.
And isn't Captan got a real short splash in the pan of a residual to it? It's a very short-lived product.
I would say it's not a long residual product, and that's why I'm saying if you go from 12.5 pounds to 10 pounds, with the 10 pounds in the earlier part of the season, you probably can slip under the 5 parts per million to Canada. Now, I don't have the data to prove that, but I will tell you that I just submitted a proposal to the Washington Raspberry Commission that, if funded, would answer that question. All right. Another one is if you don't want the gold standard program, if you're like a processor, a juice grower, you start at 5 to 10% bloom. You do a Captan Kinja a Captan Kinja plus a Captan, then a Kinja, then a Captan plus switch, and a Captan plus switch. And that's 7.5 pounds. That's probably half the cost of a program. But we have or are developing a number of control programs, depending on and these programs that we're developing, we've got one that can matched up for certain export markets. Also, depending on your history of fungicide use or the resistance you have, we've got programs that should fit that. Also, if you're an IQF grower or if you're a juice or process grower, we got different programs for different kinds of products. Also, if you just can't tolerate any disease program, we got some more aggressive programs versus a less aggressive programs. We've got cheap programs versus more expensive ones, and just a number of other factors. We got roughly 12 or 13 different raspberry programs. Now, they're not ones I've set up. It's one that people in the industry collectively have got together to. Basically, we feel that these 12 to 13 programs will fit about any botrytis scenario that you have. And don't ask me for these programs. You want to work with your, like the Whatcom Co-op, Ellenboss, Scottish Farmers Co-op, Wilbur Allison. Hopefully we will, and your county extension agents, they'll have this information that we put together. That is that, oh, whoops, no, I'm not done. Okay. You'll probably want to use Kinja early due to MRL issues unless you'll be used in US or Canada, then you use it throughout the season. You rotate to a different mode of action from Kinja after every 1 or 2 applications. Rotate with Switch Pristine and Rovrol. If you know you don't have significant resistance to any of the 3, don't use more than 1 application of Rovrol. We used to have a heavy resistance. The resistance has mostly gone away, mostly, but not always. If you use it more than once, you're going to lose Rovrol. But we think you can use it 1 time out of 6. Use Captan. It's not the most effective botrytis unless everything else is resistant. However, botrytis has never developed resistance against Captan any place in the world. You want to add Captan when using Kinja, Switch, Pristine, and Rovrol unless you're going to Canada. That's the end of my talk. Do I have time for questions? Okay. Any questions? Or actually, before Midbow, do you have any comments you want to make? Anything you want to keep your head down? All right. Okay, but the question was, what's the active ingredient in Kinja? Tell me if I'm saying this right. Isophytamid? Now, does that really tell you anything more? Okay.
Is that a new class?
Okay, it is not a new, it is, okay, help me out here. It is not a new class. It's group 7, is that right? Group 7, but is it a subgroup or is it just that it's not an official subgroup, is it? Okay, so it is the same class as Boscalid. Okay, keep nodding your head there, Chris. It's the same class as Boscalid, but it is sufficiently different in its molecular structure that there is not cross resistance to Pristine, Switch, and Elevate resistance mechanisms. There are 5 known resistance mechanisms in botrytis, and this does not have cross resistance, we believe, to the 3 kinds that we have here. Okay, any more questions? Yes, Randy.
Do we know yet an approximate cost per acre per application on this product, or
You're selling
or is
it,
that too preliminary?
but you know what? These guys will never answer that question. They'll say it's going to be competitive.
It's competitive.
It's being sold by, this is being distributed by Summit Agro in North Carolina.
But
So-
that doesn't really mean anything. It's going
Right.
through Wilbur Ellis and Helena, and they sub out.
Right.
Everybody around here, I think, is going to have access to it.
Yes.
And but I'll tell you what I think. It's going to be somewhere between the price of gold and the price of platinum. There's no way I can imagine them letting this product out. That is, I'm just, my gut feeling is it. And you'll never get someone like Midbow or someone from Wilbur to, in front of everybody, talk about the price. It'll just never happen.
Where else is he registering it besides Japan?
Well, no, okay. What they almost always do is they go after the U.S. first, or U.S. Canada first, because if you get the registration here, a number of other countries will quickly register it. So it's registered here for strawberries. For raspberries, it's not registered any place in the world, even the United States. So with the Section 18, we're going to get access to it before it's registered. So this is early, new, cutting edge. We're the first.
When we do have registration, which we would expect probably 2018 with a Section 3, it will have a 0-day PHI. So once the MRLs are set across, globally, that will be available for 0-day PHI.
Oh yeah, and just to put something in perspective, which goes all the way back to Joe DeFrancisco's talk, countries often try and get a registration first, because if you get it through here, you can automatically get it in some other countries or get it very quickly in other countries. or it's quicker in other countries if they get it here. And they can't pursue MRLs until they've got a registration. And so the good news is we often are the first people to get access to new products. The downside of that is that always means lagging on MRLs. I'm telling you, MRLs are just going to be a problem that we have to deal with. And there's countries are enforcing them more. They're going to be more of a problem. It's a fact of life. And we just have to live with it, deal with it, and try and focus some of our resources on making it less of a pain. All right. I think out of time. All right. Thank you.